Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my second eyeshadow palette declutter. If you guys missed part one, I will link it in the description box below, but I'm going through and decluttering my eyeshadow palettes because I had way too many. They took up 2 of these drawers, which is ridiculous. So I'm trying to downsize my collection enough to be able to fit everything in one drawer, or fit everything in one drawer for the most part, because I keep a lot of palettes in my everyday makeup drawer. So in part one, I was able to get rid of like half of them, or at least like clear half of the drawers. So that's kind of my goal for part 2. We'll see how it goes. So let's jump into it and start decluttering. Okay, the first palette is the Anastasia Norvina palette, which is definitely one of my favorite palettes. I love this so much. I love the neutrals, I love the pinks and the purples, and I just think it's absolutely beautiful. The Anastasia formula has become one of my favorite formulas over the past few months, so I definitely won't be getting rid of any of my Anastasia palettes. This one is the Sultry palette, which is probably my favorite Anastasia palette out of the 4. I just think it's such an easy palette to work with. There are a lot of neutral colors in here. I mean, they're all pretty much neutrals except for the shade Bloom, but there are shades that you can wear for like everyday looks, or you can use some of the darker shades to amp it up a little bit, and I'm just so impressed by the quality of this palette. So obviously I won't be decluttering that one. I also won't be decluttering my other 2. This one is the Soft Glam palette, which is a little bit more warm toned. If you like cooler toned neutrals, I would go with Sultry, but if you like warmer toned shades, this one is going to be such a fun option for you. This one has a lot of browns in it, but I just think it's such a pretty palette. No matter what you go in with, you can get a really seamless eyeshadow look. So this is, of course, a great option. And then the Modern Renaissance is probably my least favorite out of the 4, just because I don't find that I wear a ton of these shades as often as I do the shades in the other palettes, but I still love it. I just think it's such a pretty palette, and I need to break it back out because now that I've fallen back in love with the Anastasia formula, I think that I'll be able to appreciate this one. Okay, I don't know how many of these chocolate bar palettes I'm ready to get rid of either. The one that I'm definitely not getting rid of is the, well, it's not chocolate bar, but it's the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice. I just got this one. It was a holiday 2018 palette. I don't think I needed this palette, to be honest with you guys, because I do think I have a lot of very similar shadows in my collection in other palettes, but I do enjoy this one. I think the quality is really, really good. The metallics are beautiful. The mattes are really blendable. So it does have great colors. I think it might be good for traveling, especially during the summertime with like these shades over here. And I do like it. So I am going to hang on to this one, and I'm definitely not getting rid of the Too Faced Chocolate Gold. This is one of my favorite palettes because the metallic formula is so gorgeous. It's like such an insanely pigmented, smooth metallic formula, and it goes on the eyes so beautifully. And then you do get a couple of staple matte shadows. So these are probably my favorite Too Faced palettes, at least right now. I mean, the chocolate gold has been a favorite for a long time. And then another one of my favorites is this one, the Too Faced Sweet Peach. When we went out of town a few months ago, I brought this one with me and I just fell back in love with it. It's such a good palette. You get so many beautiful colors. You can do a really easy neutral look with like some of these shades, or you can do something a little bit more dark and smoky with like some of these shades over here. The shadows are just good for everyday wear because they're very blendable, really easy to work with. So I'm definitely going to keep this one. So the Chocolate Bonbons palette is actually a really beautiful cooler toned palette. I haven't used this in a while, but I am kind of more into cool tones these days. So I kind of feel like I would really enjoy this and get a lot of use out of it. I think I'm actually going to put it in my everyday makeup drawer and see if I can kind of count it as like a rediscovered favorite. I believe they discontinued the Semi-Sweet Chocolate Bar palette, which is so sad. This was probably one of my favorite palettes. Like, this one definitely looks used. You can tell that I used it a lot. There are some really pretty cool tones in here as well, and then some warm tones. And I don't know, mine is definitely looking a little rough. I wonder if the formula's actually changed because it doesn't look as good as it did at one time. I'm not sure about this one. This one is the original Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, which I have had for a while. I didn't like this one as much as the other 2. I didn't find myself reaching for it as much, even though it does come with some good staple neutrals. But again, I feel like at this point, there are other neutral palettes on the market that are better than this one. So honestly, I don't feel like I have to have this one. I actually think I can declutter this one. I think I'm going to hang on to this one for a little longer and put both of these in an everyday makeup drawer. Over here in the front, I have my Buxom Dolly's Wild Side palette. I loved this for such a long time. It's a really beautiful palette and you can create some really beautiful looks, but I definitely have other palettes in my collection now that are very similar. For a while, it was my only palette with shades like this, but like I said, I have a ton of shades like this at this point, so I don't think I I need to keep this one any longer. These Essence palettes. Okay, so I only tried the Spice Up Your Life palette. I got these in PR and I was pretty surprised by the quality of this one. I definitely liked it better than other Essence eyeshadows that I've tried in the past. It wasn't necessarily like a super intensely pigmented palette like Juvia's Place, but it was a good palette and the shadows blended nicely. If you prefer more subtle shadows, I definitely think you would like these. I actually didn't get around to trying the other ones. This one is the I'm With the Band palette. It has some pretty like blues, purples, some berry tone shades. And then this one is Fairy Wings Magical Things, which has some pretty pastels. Because I haven't even opened these, like they have the protective sheet on them, I'm definitely going to declutter these two and pass them along to somebody else so they can enjoy them. I don't feel like I need to keep this one because again, I have shades very similar to these in my collection. I'm tempted to keep it because it's an Essence palette and I always think like maybe I'll do a dedicated Essence video, but I don't think that's a good enough reason to keep it. Okay, the Too Faced White Peach palette is something that has been in a couple of my fail videos, but I still haven't been able to get rid of it because there are a couple shades in here that are so beautiful. Like this shade Sweet Fig is one of my favorites, and I mean, honestly, that's pretty much it. Like the top two rows for the most part don't show up that well in my skin tone and they pretty much blend into nothing. And even though I say that, I still keep it. I don't know why. I honestly think like the packaging definitely plays a part in it. Because I literally just admitted that out loud, I think it is time to move on and declutter this one because apparently I'm not keeping it for the actual shadows. It's just a pretty palette to look at, but it doesn't really work well for me, my skin tone, my preferences. So I'm going to declutter it. I do have the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes palette, which I do like this palette, but every time I use it, I find that my eyes are a little bit irritated. So I kind of think I'm just maybe allergic to one of the main ingredients in this, but there must be something about it. I don't know if it's like the fragrance they use or what, but it definitely has irritated my eyes in the past. And because of that, I haven't really been wanting to try it again. So I'm actually just going to declutter it as well. I have the Boxycharm Pure Cosmetics palette. And here's the thing about Boxycharm. They do include a lot of palettes. I think a lot of them are great. And if you don't have a large eyeshadow palette collection, it's a nice way to try new palettes. Now for me, I definitely have a lot of palettes, obviously. So I don't always feel the need to keep every single palette I get in my Boxycharm. And sometimes I declutter it after I film like the unboxing. Sometimes I hang on to it for a while and use it for a while. But just keep in mind, just because I'm decluttering palettes that I got in subscription boxes doesn't mean they're bad palettes. It just means they're not necessarily the best option for me personally. So I did get a lot of use out of this. I love these pink tone shades. I think they're so pretty. But I have so many pink toned palettes because that's one of my favorite colors to wear. So I just don't think I need this one. This one is the Soiree Diaries palette. It's a really, really neutral palette. And even though I like the formula, I just find this one a little bit underwhelming for me. Like when I wear neutrals, I wear very specific types of neutrals. I usually wear a lot of golds, a lot of warmer browns, or like cooler light purples, but I just don't find myself reaching for like a lot of these shades a whole lot. And because I do have so many neutrals, I just think like a friend or my mom or my sisters might enjoy this palette and then they can get more use out of it than I personally do. So I'm going to declutter this one as well. This one is the Alamar Cosmetics palette that we got in Boxycharm. This is such a good palette. I will definitely keep this one. The metallics are so, so beautiful and the matte shadows are great too. I have two more Bad Habit palettes. These are, honestly, I don't know which palettes these are dupes for. Maybe Huda palettes. I don't think I need to keep both of these. Like they definitely have different themes, but there are some similarities. I think I'm going to declutter Aphrodite because I don't, like these shades are things that I can find in the Modern Renaissance. The metallics are really pretty, but the matte shadows in general aren't shades that I feel like I have to have, whereas the Athena palette really catches my eye. I love purples and pinks, and there are a couple of like oranges and reds in here, but I think in general I'd reach for this one more than Aphrodite. So I will keep Athena and declutter Aphrodite. I just don't feel like I have to keep both of them. This one is from Tarte. It is the Clay Play palette. I wish they never discontinued this. I discovered it right before they discontinued it, and I know it looks like a basic neutral palette, but I really like this formula. This is like Tarte's best matte formula that I've tried. I just think it's so soft and blendable and beautiful. And when you want to do something just really basic, really neutral, this is a good option. These are bronzers, but you can also use them as eyeshadows. And I tend to bring this one with me when I'm traveling. And I know I'm not going to want to do anything colorful, which doesn't happen a whole lot these days, but it does happen on occasion. So I'm going to hang on to this one for a little while longer. I don't think it's a palette I'll keep forever, just because, I mean, it is a neutral palette, but I do like the formula. And I do use it. Then I have the BH Cosmetics Royal Affair palette. This is the first BH Cosmetics palette that I've tried in years, and I was so impressed by it. I think it's so beautiful. The formula is really, really high quality, and there are some interesting shadows in here. It's pretty new to my collection, so I am going to hang on to this one as well. Okay, so back here I just have a couple. These are all like single shadows. They're all from ColourPop. I actually need to go through and just like sort them, keep the ones that I want, declutter the ones I don't think I'll use. I'm definitely going to hang on to them and use them. I just need to like rearrange them so I actually do use them. Okay, let's go through these palettes back here. Okay, the first one is the Urban Decay Beached Eyeshadow Palette. I definitely don't feel like I need this one, but I kind of feel like I want this one. It's kind of like the Urban Decay Naked Heat with like pops of blue. But when I got this last year, it was like the end of the summer. I wasn't wearing a lot of shades like this, so I don't know that I used it a whole lot, and I do kind of want to get a little use out of it this year. This one is the Face Candy Sahara palette, and I think it's a dupe for a Kylie palette maybe. I'm pretty sure it was, but I don't know which Kylie palette. I really like this one. I think there are some gorgeous colors in here, and I especially love using like the browns and the golds. I think I might hang on to this one, but I might declutter this one. This one is the Amazonia palette. This one, well, now I kind of feel like I should keep this one because this one has some more interesting, unique shades, like the blues, the grays. I think I'm going to keep both of them for now. I might revisit them at the end of the video, but the colors are unique. I am going to declutter the Bad Habit Retro Love palette. It's supposed to be a dupe for Subculture. I didn't like Subculture, and honestly, I just don't find myself reaching for this one very much either. I think the formula, I think, is a little bit more blendable than Subculture, but even though I love these yellows and these darker shades, I have other like darker mattes that work well, and I don't wear yellows a whole lot, and I just don't need to keep it. I never use it. Okay, let's talk about the Naked palettes. I'm definitely keeping Naked Cherry. This is a really beautiful berry toned palette with like pinks and browns, and I've been using it a little bit more lately. I just think the formula is really good and I'm impressed by it. And I'm also keeping the Urban Decay Naked Heat. I think this is my favorite Naked palette. When I want to wear like a warm toned eye, this is what I go for. I love these shades in here. The mattes are blendable and they're not like they're not like overly warm, like they're not intense oranges. They're a little bit more of like brown toned oranges, and I just really enjoy this. I like the packaging of these the best, and I think the formula is a little bit better than the originals. But I feel like the original Naked palettes, like the formula just isn't my personal favorite at this point. I really loved it at one point, and I feel like they were very innovative for their time. I feel like I said that weird. But at this point, there are so many other neutral palettes on the market that I don't know that they really do have a place in my collection. So I need to move past like that nostalgic feeling and decide whether or not I actually need them. Here is the original, and I think I'm actually going to declutter this one. Part of me wants to keep it because it was like one of my first high-end palettes, and this is like the one that I've had for years and years. So I haven't touched it in a really long time. I just kind of keep it for like sentimental purposes, but I don't know why. I don't do that with anything in my life, in my entire house, other than eyeshadow palettes. So it's time to make a change. I think I'm going to declutter this one. I never wear it. I never do. And it doesn't need to sit in a drawer. It just doesn't make sense. The Naked 2 was something that I loved a lot. And again, this is a really pretty cooler toned palette, but at this point I have other cooler toned formulas and palettes that I reach for, and I haven't touched this one in a very long time. So I'm going to declutter this as well. And then the Naked 3 palette. I think that this is such a pretty palette. I loved this so much when it came out. I think I did like so many YouTube videos using it, but again, at this point, like I love pink shadows, but I don't typically wear like very subtle pink shadows. I like something a little bit more intense and vibrant. So I just, as beautiful as it is, and like I'm looking at it and it's so pretty, I just have other formulas that I prefer to this one. So I think it's actually time to part with these. I feel a little sad, like I don't want to let them go, but at the same time, what is the point in keeping them if they literally just sit inside my drawer and I don't take them out? I don't think I used any of these palettes in 2018, so it's time to move on. And the last one is the Naked Smoky. I'm kind of rediscovering older palettes in my collection because I'm more into cool tones, and I didn't realize I had so many cool toned palettes already in my collection. So I never got a lot of use out of this, but I was really into warm shadows for a long time. So I think I might try to see if I can get use out of it. This is the last year though that I'm hanging on to this. If it's not a favorite or it's not something that I feel like I have to have by the end of 2019, it has to go. Actually, I think I'm going to declutter these too, now that I'm looking at them again. I think the shadows are pretty and there are some unique shades in here, but realistically, I don't find myself reaching for them a ton, and I kind of feel like I'm hanging on to a lot of palettes. So the formula is good, like it's very blendable, very easy to work with, but I don't know the last time that I actually used them. I don't want to get rid of them. Okay. I just decided I'm going to declutter them. If I'm like so back and forth, I don't feel like I have to keep them. I have a few ColourPop palettes. I'm not planning on decluttering these, so I'll just show them to you. This one is the It's My Pleasure palette. If you like pinks and purples, this is such a good option. This has been like my go-to palette lately. I just can't put it down. I think it is so much fun to use. Then we have the Brown Sugar palette. This one's a good neutral palette. If you have a little bit of a darker skin tone and you're looking for like a nice neutral palette that doesn't just blend into your skin, I think that this one would be a good option for you. And if you just like darker neutrals in general, it's a nice alternative to some of the ColourPop lighter neutral palettes that they already have. This is the Ooh La La palette. I haven't used this one a whole lot, which is crazy because I love pinks. I think it just kind of got lost within all of my palettes. So it is something that I love. It's something that I want to use more. I think it would be fun to use this one with It's My Pleasure. So I am going to hang on to this. And then I have the Soul and Mar palettes. Soul is definitely more of a warm toned palette. Again, I don't wear a ton of warm tones these days, but I love the ColourPop palettes, honestly, so I don't want to part with that one. And then the Mar palette, again, it has some staple neutrals, but it does have like a few pops of color as well. So I am keeping these. But I am going to declutter the NYX Ultimate Shadow Palette, and this one is the Smoky and Highlight Palette. I've used it a couple of times, and I just find it to be poor quality. Honestly, the shadows aren't like very pigmented. They're not super blendable. I have to go in multiple times to get the amount of color that I want on my eyes, so I'm just going to declutter it. The Milani Most Loved Mattes Palette is a really good option if you need like a staple neutral matte palette. They're really blendable, really easy to work with. I think it's a great travel palette, and I'm definitely hanging on to this one just because the formula is easy to work with. The Too Faced Natural Eyes palette. This, I think I hang on to this one again for sentimental reasons. My very first high-end eyeshadow palette was the Too Faced Natural Eyes palette, but it didn't look like this. It was like a super bulky cardboard palette. And I think some of the shades might have been a little bit different. I don't think that this is a bad palette. I actually think it is a good palette, but it's not something that I personally need. If you have a very small collection, or you're new to makeup, or you like beautiful packaging and beautiful palettes, you might enjoy this one. The formula is good, so I don't have an issue with that. I just don't need it. I could probably replicate this palette with like that ColourPop palette right there, and even though it's beautiful, I just don't need it. I'm sure somebody else would enjoy it and get more use out of it. I have two more Pure palettes. I didn't realize I had so many Pure Cosmetics palettes. I think their shadows are fine. Like, I don't have anything against them. I don't reach for them as much because they tend to be a little bit more subtle on the eyes. Like if I'm wearing shades like these, I want them to be so intense and so vibrant. And these are really pretty, but I just feel like I have other metallics that I prefer to these. I like Pure's matte shadows better because they're very, very blendable and really easy to use, but I just don't feel like I need them. This one is the Midnight Masquerade palette. There are some like brighter jewel tones and then some cheek products. The cheek products are a little bit too dark for me and my preferences, so I'm actually just going to pass this along as well. So I'll declutter both of these. I have 4 more ColourPop palettes, which I'm not planning on getting rid of any of these. So again, I'll just show you really quickly. This one is the Fame palette. It's a cooler toned neutral palette. It comes with 16 different shadows. And then they also have the Fortune palette, which is a warmer toned neutral palette. These are a nice option. I mean, some people consider them boring, but I reach for them all the time, especially the Fame palette. I just think the shadows are great and you can create so many different looks just using like one small compact palette. This one is the Through My Eyes palette. It's a newer palette to my collection and I really enjoy it. I think that there are some pretty colors in here. A few of the shades are a little bit underwhelming, like this shade and this shade. They're like glitter infused metallics and they don't show up on the eyes that well. So I don't find this to be one of their highest quality palettes, but I do like the shades in here. I reach for like the greens a lot and the berry tones. And then this one is the Perception palette, which is one of my favorites. You just get all kinds of shades in here. You get some lighter neutrals, some dark smoky tones, some colorful shades, and it's really, really high quality. These are from the Too Faced Tutti Frutti collection. The first one is the Razzle Dazzle Berry eyeshadow palette, which has beautiful, beautiful berry tones. I love this palette so much. I like these because there's a lot going on. Like there are mattes and there are like cream metallics, and then there's like a matte with glitter. There's just a lot going on in one palette, but at the same time, they're smaller, they're more compact. This one is the Sparkling Pineapple palette, and again, I just like it. If it just came with like neutrals, I'd probably get rid of it, but I love how I can use this gold, this green. This is more of like a cream shadow, and as a whole, I just really like these. This one is the Flower Beauty Shimmer and Shade eyeshadow palette in Golden Natural. It's one of my favorites. I'm actually trying to hit pan on it for 2019, only because I just was kind of curious how long it would take me to hit pan on it, because it is a palette that I use so often. It just comes with like staple golds and browns, and I like the formula. It's very easy to work with. And then one of my favorite palettes is the Dose of Colors Friendcation. I wear this all the time. I just think it's such a fun palette to work with. I love the metallics in here because they're so sparkly, and the matte shadows are insanely blendable. Like this is one of the best palettes that I've tried. Then I have my Too Faced Life's a Festival palette, which again, I do love. The matte shadows are just kind of okay, but the metallic shadows and like the duochromes are so pretty. They just completely transform your eye look. So I'm definitely not ready to get rid of this one. I love breaking it out during the summertime when I want more of like a unique, colorful look. Okay, we are almost done. This one is the ColourPop Semi-Precious palette. This was limited edition, and the formula is great. Like these are really, really beautiful. I don't find myself reaching for this one a whole lot, just because when I want like colorful shades, I usually reach for something a little more vibrant. This one is the Protege palette by Suva Beauty. It comes with really gorgeous colors. I definitely want to keep this one. I think the shades up top are really pretty, and then I do love the two highlight shades. This one is the Grandiose palette, and I like this one. I think it's good. I don't feel like I have to keep it because there are shades very similar to these in other palettes that I own, but I don't think it's necessarily like a standout formula for me personally. I just don't think I use it enough to justify keeping it. Urban Decay's Born to Run is something that I'm going to hang on to. I think there's a lot going on in this palette, but it's nice when you're traveling because you can just throw this in your makeup bag and you can create so many looks. I brought this with me when we went out of town for a weekend, and I was able to do whatever I wanted, whether it was like a very simple neutral look or something a little bit more dark and smoky, even something a little bit more colorful. So I am going to keep this one. And then of course I'm keeping the Dominique Cosmetics Berries and Cream palette. This has been my favorite palette lately. I love this. I was so impressed by the quality. I couldn't believe it was so good. The matte shadows are just so rich and blendable and easy to wear. Even like these more colorful shades blend out so easily, so effortlessly, and the metallic shadows go on just really, really nicely. So I love this. Okay, so those are all of the palettes that I'm keeping. I think I kept a little bit more this time around. Let me count them and then see what percentage I got rid of. Okay, I'm decluttering at 22 and keeping 39. I'm actually really happy with that because again, that's almost 40%. It's like 37%. So I did get rid of about 40% of my palettes, which I think is a lot. I was not expecting to get rid of that many. I'm going to organize them after I film these videos or maybe tomorrow. So I'll put a clip in right now of how all of my palettes look in my collection. I'll show you a before of what they looked like. I had so many, 2 full drawers, and then I'll show you an after and show you what I cleared out. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you missed part 1, I will link it in the description box below, but I'll see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye.